The woman by the roadside was nearly midnight. The streets of Los Angeles were mostly quiet, lit only by scattered street lamps and the occasional flash of passing cars. Most people had already gone home. Restaurants were closing. Delivery trucks were slowing down. But Keanu Reeves wasn't in a hurry. He liked driving at night. It helped him clear his mind. He had just finished a long interview downtown, but he didn't feel like going straight home. So he drove, slowly, quietly, no music, just the sound of the road under his tires and the hum of the city trying to sleep. As he turned onto a narrow side street near a hospital, he saw something that made him slow down. A woman in a nurse's uniform was standing by the edge of the road, her back slightly hunched, her shoulders shaking. She wasn't waving, she wasn't moving, but something about the way she stood told him something was wrong. He pulled up slowly and rolled down the window. "Excuse me," he said gently. "Are you all right?" The woman turned her head. Her face was pale, her eyes were full of tears, and when she saw him, her mouth opened slightly in shock. You're Keanu Reeves," she whispered, wiping her face quickly with the sleeve of her uniform. "Yeah," he replied with a small smile. "But right now, I'm just someone who saw a person crying on the street. Do you need help?" She hesitated, then nodded. "My car broke down. My phone's dead. I just finished a 14-hour shift. I tried to walk home, but I can't feel my legs anymore." Keanu stepped out of his car without saying a word. He walked to the passenger door, opened it, and gestured. "Come on, let me take you home." The woman looked around, unsure. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "It's not safe to be out here alone. Please." After a moment, she climbed in as he started driving. The silence inside the car felt heavy. The woman sat with her hands in her lap, her eyes still red from crying. "Do you want some water?" he asked, pulling a bottle from the side compartment and handing it to her. She took it, grateful. "Thank you. What's your name?" he asked gently. "Jamie," she said. "Jamie Flores." "Hi, Jamie," he replied. "I'm Keanu." "I know," she said softly, finally letting out a small, tired laugh. "This feels like a dream. But if it's a dream, please don't wake me yet." He smiled. "I won't." They drove in silence for a few minutes. Then Jamie spoke. "Sorry if I scared you. Today was too much. Want to talk about it?" Jamie stared ahead. "I lost a patient today. She was young, same age as me. I did everything I could. We all did. But sometimes life just decides, and there's nothing we can do." Keanu didn't say anything right away. He understood that kind of pain too well. Jamie continued, her voice shaking. "And when I walked out of the hospital, my car was dead. It was like life just said, and here's a little more for you." Keanu looked over at her. "You're stronger than you think." She laughed bitterly. "I don't feel strong. I feel tired. Broken." "Being tired doesn't mean you're not strong," he said. "It means you've been carrying more than most people can see." Jamie turned to him, eyes watery. "Why are you being so kind to me?" "Because someone was kind to me once, when I needed it most," he said. "And I never forgot how it felt." She didn't reply, but for the first time, she relaxed a little. When they reached her apartment building, she turned to him. "Thank you. Really, you didn't have to stop." "I know," he said, "but I'm glad I did." Before she got out, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small metal pin shaped like a heart. "We give these to families when they lose someone. In the hospital, it's a way of saying we see their pain. I don't know why, but I want you to have this." Keanu looked at the pin in his palm. It was simple, silver, a small heart, chipped slightly at the edge. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I'll take care of it." Jamie nodded, then stepped out of the car and disappeared into the building. He sat there for a few minutes after she left, staring at the pin. He didn't know why, but something inside him had shifted. This wasn't just a random act of kindness. It was the beginning of something he couldn't yet understand. And what he didn't know was that this nurse, this tired, broken, honest woman was about to change his life forever. The message on the napkin. Keanu couldn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about the nurse Jamie, her tired voice, her tear-filled eyes, the way she had thanked him even when she felt broken. And that small, silver heart she gave him, it was still sitting on his nightstand, quietly glowing under the soft light of his bedside lamp. He had received awards, gifts, letters from fans around the world. But that tiny heart-shaped pin meant more than most of them combined. It wasn't about him being a movie star. It wasn't about fame. It was something real, passed from one hurting soul to another. A silent reminder that they had both seen darkness and chosen to keep going. The next morning, Keanu drove back to the hospital. He didn't know what he was doing. Maybe he just wanted to say thank you again. Or maybe he felt something he didn't want to admit yet. He walked through the main doors and stopped at the front desk. "Hi," he said. "I'm looking for Nurse Jamie Flores. She works here, right?" The woman at the desk looked surprised, then smiled. "Yes, she's here. She's on break. Would you like to leave a note?" Keanu hesitated. "I'll wait if that's okay." She nodded and gestured toward a small waiting area. 10 minutes later, Jamie walked into the room with her head down, checking something on her phone. When she looked up and saw Keanu sitting there, she stopped in her tracks. "You came back," she said, eyes wide. He stood up. "I just wanted to check on you, see how you were doing." Jamie blinked. "No one ever checks on nurses. We're usually the ones doing the checking." He smiled gently. "Then let me be the first." They sat in the corner of the room, away from others. Jamie looked better today, still tired, but standing a little straighter. Her eyes weren't as red. "I thought maybe you'd forget all about me," she said. Keanu shook his head. "Impossible." They talked for a while, about her work, about the patient she lost, about how hard it is to carry that kind of weight and still show up every day. Jamie spoke with honesty Keanu wasn't used to. She didn't pretend. She didn't smile to make others feel better. She told the truth, and he found himself listening more deeply than he had in a long time. When she got up to return to her shift, she handed him a paper napkin. "If you ever need help," she said, "you can reach me here." Her number was written in neat handwriting, and beneath it, she had drawn a tiny heart, just like the one on the pin. Keanu looked at it, then at her. "I will, and thank you." As she walked away, he realized something strange was happening. He had come to check on her, but somehow he felt like the one being saved. Days passed. Keanu kept the napkin in his wallet. He didn't call her, not yet. He didn't want to intrude. But every time he saw it, he felt something warm flicker inside. Then, one evening, he was invited to a small charity gala. It was for hospital workers, nurses, doctors, emergency staff. Keanu had attended once before, just to support from the shadows. This time, he asked the organizer privately, "Is Nurse Jamie Flores invited?" The woman nodded. "Yes, she's one of the honorees this year. She saved a young boy's life last month." Keanu smiled. "Good, I'll be there." The night of the gala, he arrived quietly, wearing a simple black suit. No red carpet, no announcements. He just slipped in, found a table in the back, and waited. When Jamie walked in, she didn't see him at first. She was wearing a plain navy blue dress, her hair tied up simply, and no makeup except for a bit of lipstick. She didn't look like someone trying to be seen. She looked like someone who had worked hard to earn her place, and wasn't sure she deserved it. When she finally spotted Keanu across the room, her eyes widened in surprise. She walked over slowly. "You came," she said, stunned. Double quotes, "I told you I wouldn't forget." They sat together through the ceremony. When Jamie's name was called, she froze. Keanu gently nudged her arm. "Go, you earned this." As she walked up to receive her award, the host shared her story, how Jamie had stayed beyond her shift to watch over a young boy who had stopped breathing, how she used both knowledge and instinct to save him, how she had stayed with the family the whole night, refusing to leave even after the child stabilized. Everyone clapped. Jamie stood at the podium, hands trembling slightly. "I don't usually speak," she said. "I just do my job and go home. But I want to say something tonight." The room went quiet. "Last week, I broke down on the street. I felt like I was drowning, and someone stopped. Someone most people would never expect to care." She looked directly at Keanu. "He didn't just give me a ride. He gave me a reminder that kindness still exists, that being seen matters, even if it's just for a moment." Keanu felt his eyes sting. When she stepped down, people clapped again, but the sound faded behind the beating in his chest. After the gala, they walked out together under the night sky. You didn't have to say all that, Keanu said softly. Jamie looked at him. I wanted to, because you didn't just save me that night. You made me feel human again. They stood in silence for a moment. Then she asked, can I ask you something, anything? Why were you driving around that night? It was late. Keanu hesitated. Then he said, I was trying to forget something, someone I lost. Jamie nodded. So was I, and in that quiet space between two broken hearts, something new began to grow, something unspoken, something real. But neither of them could guess that the story was only just beginning, because soon a letter would arrive for Keanu. A letter that would change everything he thought he knew about his past and about Jamie. The letter from the past. It had been 2 weeks since the gala. Keanu and Jamie had started talking more often, not every day, but enough to know they were becoming something important in each other's lives. Their conversations were quiet, real, and often filled with pauses that said more than words ever could. They would meet at the small park behind the hospital. Sometimes they sat on a bench and shared a coffee. Sometimes they just watched the ducks on the pond in silence. And sometimes they spoke about the people they had lost. Jamie told him about her older sister, Maria, who passed away from cancer years ago. She was my best friend, she said. I became a nurse because of her. I couldn't save her, but I thought maybe I could save someone else. Keanu shared his own story too, about Jennifer, the woman he had loved and lost, and about the baby they never got to meet. I still talk to them, he admitted one day in my head. Especially when the nights get quiet. Jamie reached for his hand that day, didn't say a word, just held it, and he let her. Then one morning, Keanu's assistant handed him an envelope. This came by mail, no return address. Keanu raised an eyebrow and opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. The paper was old, yellowed a bit at the edges. The handwriting was elegant, almost careful, like someone had written each word with intention. As he read, his hands began to tremble. Dear Keanu, I don't know if you remember me. My name is Sophia Flores. I worked as a nurse many years ago at St. Catherine's Hospital. This letter is not about me, it's about a child you never knew you saved. 20-5 years ago, you donated anonymously to our hospital's emergency fund. That donation paid for a surgery for a baby girl who was born with a heart defect. Her mother couldn't afford treatment. The doctors said she had days to live. Because of your help, she survived. Her name is Jamie. Keanu stopped reading. His breath caught in his throat. He stared at the letter, unable to move. He continued, she never knew who saved her. We kept it private, as requested. But now, seeing the way life has brought you two together again, I believe she deserves to know, and so do you. Some things are not accidents. Sometimes people are meant to return to the lives they once touched. With respect, Sophia Flores. Keanu read the letter again and again. He sat down on the couch, staring out the window, the letter still in his hand. Jamie. The girl he gave a ride to, the nurse who handed him a heart pin, the woman who had helped him find peace again. She was the child he unknowingly helped save decades ago. He didn't tell her right away. He didn't know how. How do you tell someone that you were there for the very beginning of their life, without even knowing it? Instead, he asked her to meet him at the park. When she arrived, she was smiling. You okay? She asked, sitting next to him. He handed her the letter without saying a word. She read it quietly. Slowly. Her hands shook. When she finished, she looked at him with tears filling her eyes. This is real, she whispered. Keanu nodded. I had no idea. Not until today. Jamie stared at the pond, her lips trembling. All my life, I've wondered why I got a second chance, why I was saved when so many others weren't. My mom told me someone helped us. She didn't know who, and now it's you. Keanu reached for her hand. I didn't know it would be you, but now that it is, everything makes sense. Jamie broke down. She cried hard, not because she was sad, but because something inside her had finally clicked into place. You saved me twice, she whispered. Once as a baby, and once on the side of the road. Keanu held her close. Maybe we were meant to find each other. Jamie nodded. I believe that now. The next day, Jamie took Keanu to meet her mother. They sat in a small kitchen filled with family photos and the smell of warm tortillas. Her mother, Anna, was in her 60s. Her hair was silver, and her eyes were kind. When Jamie told her everything, Anna gasped and covered her mouth. You were the angel, she whispered. I prayed every night for the man who saved my daughter. I prayed he would be safe, happy, blessed. Tears rolled down her cheeks, and now he's sitting in my kitchen. Keanu smiled gently. I'm just glad she's here, and healthy, and strong. Anna reached for his hands. You have no idea how many nights I held her close and thanked someone I didn't even know. Now I do. That dinner became the beginning of something new. A bond, a connection, a shared history neither of them had expected but one they both embraced. But as life often does, peace doesn't last forever. 1 week later, while walking out of the hospital, Jamie received a call. Her expression changed instantly. What's wrong? Keanu asked. Jamie's voice shook. It's my mom. She collapsed. They're taking her to the emergency room. Keanu didn't ask questions. He grabbed her hand and said, Let's go. As they rushed to the hospital, neither of them knew what was waiting. But one thing was clear: Keanu wasn't just there for the beginning of Jamie's life. He was going to be there now, for whatever came next. The waiting room and the storm. They rushed into the emergency room, the doors swinging wide as Jamie ran ahead, her hair flying behind her like the wind itself was trying to catch up. Keanu stayed close behind. He had been too many hospitals in his life for movie roles, for friends, for loss, but this time was different. This time, it wasn't about pretending. It wasn't about fame. This was real. A nurse recognized Jamie and gently pulled her aside. Your mother is stable, she said softly, but we're monitoring her closely. She collapsed from sudden cardiac stress. We're moving her to intensive care now. Jamie's knees almost gave out. Keanu caught her, steadying her gently. Can I see her? Jamie asked. Not yet. We'll let you know. The nurse replied. Jamie nodded and sat down on the nearest bench, her face pale, her hands trembling. Keanu sat beside her and placed his hand over hers. Breathe, he said gently. You're not alone. Jamie looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. I can't lose her. You won't, he said. But even as he spoke, a deep ache grew in his chest. He knew what it felt like to lose someone you loved, and watching Jamie sit in that waiting room helpless, quiet, fighting tears felt like watching himself all over again. They sat for hours. Nurses moved in and out. Announcements echoed across the hallway. People came and went, but they stayed there, side by side. At one point, Jamie leaned her head on Keanu's shoulder. Do you believe in fate? She asked softly. I didn't. He replied. Not until you. She let out a shaky breath. If she doesn't wake up, don't finish that thought. Keanu interrupted. She will, but deep down. Even he was scared. Finally, a doctor walked over. He was older, with gray hair and a tired expression. Jamie, she stood immediately. Your mother is awake. Her heart's weak, but we've stabilized her. She's asking for you. Jamie broke into tears and hugged Keanu so tightly. He felt her heart pounding through her chest. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for being here. He didn't say anything. He just held her. She went to see her mother, and Keanu stayed in the waiting room. Alone, he pulled the silver heart pin from his pocket and held it between his fingers. So much had changed since the night Jamie gave it to him. Back then, it had been a symbol of loss. Now, it was a symbol of connection. A nurse walked by and paused. You're Keanu Reeves, right? He nodded. She smiled. That nurse Jamie, she saved my daughter's life last year. I never got to thank her properly. Now I see she's in good hands too. Keanu smiled back. She's the strong one. After a while, Jamie returned. Her eyes were red, but her expression was softer. She's going to be okay, she said. Falling into his arms again, they stepped outside for air. The sun was rising, painting the sky with soft orange and gold. It felt like the world was waking up again. Keanu, she said, can I tell you something I've never said out loud? He turned to her. Of course, I never let anyone in. Not really. I always thought if I let someone close, they'd leave, or break me, or both. Keanu listened quietly. But then, you showed up, when I was crying, when I felt invisible. And instead of passing by, you stopped, you listened, and you stayed. He nodded slowly. I wasn't trying to save anyone. I just couldn't walk away. That's exactly why it mattered. She whispered. She looked up at him, eyes shimmering. You gave me more than a ride. You gave me a reason to believe again. And before either of them could speak another word, she reached up and kissed him. It wasn't loud or rushed. It was soft, full of quiet understanding. The kind of kiss that says, we're still healing, but we're healing together. When they pulled away, Keanu smiled. I guess that silver heart pin worked after all. Jamie laughed for the first time in days. In the weeks that followed, Anna's health improved. She was moved home with care support, and Jamie took time off work to stay with her. Keanu visited often. He helped cook, drove them to appointments, and brought flowers Jamie never asked for. They had found a rhythm again, not perfect, not without pain, but full of moments that felt real. And then one morning, while cleaning the attic of her mother's house, Jamie found something that made her heart stop. A box, old and covered in dust. Inside was a photograph. A hospital room. Her mother, holding her as a newborn. And beside them, standing near the door, was a much younger Keanu Reeves. Jamie gasped. She ran downstairs, holding the photo. Mom, is this real? Anna took the picture in her hands and smiled softly. Yes, that was the day you had your surgery. The day you were saved. He came to visit quietly after the donation. Didn't want attention. Just wanted to know you were okay. Jamie sat down, slowly, stunned. He didn't tell me he came. Anna smiled. That's the kind of man he is. That night, Jamie showed Keanu the photo. He stared at it, his face unreadable. I forgot about this, he said. I didn't think anyone had. A picture. Jamie placed it beside the silver heart pin on the table. You were there in the beginning, she whispered. And you're still here. Keanu looked at her, eyes soft. And I always will be. But just as the moment settled, Jamie's phone buzzed. A message from the hospital. Urgent, staff meeting required. Unexpected crisis. All hands needed. Jamie looked at Keanu. He nodded. Go, they need you. She kissed his forehead. And I'll always come back. As she walked out the door, Keanu looked at the photo again. This wasn't just a story of kindness. This was a story of fate. But neither of them knew that what was coming next would test them both more than anything they had faced before. And this time, it wouldn't be about the past. It would be about whether their bond could survive what the future was about to bring. The test of tomorrow. The hospital was chaos. Jamie stepped through the emergency entrance, her badge around her neck, her heart pounding. Alarms were going off, nurses were sprinting across the halls, and stretchers filled with patients were being rolled in one after another. A massive fire had broken out in a downtown apartment complex. Dozens of people injured, burns, smoke inhalation, trauma. The hospital had gone into emergency response mode, calling in all available staff. Jamie barely had time to catch her breath. For the next 14 hours, she worked non-stop. She wrapped burns, held crying children, helped surgeons stabilize patients, and comforted families in waiting rooms who didn't yet know if their loved ones would make it. At one point, she paused just long enough to wash her face. She looked in the mirror, and for a moment, she saw someone who looked like a stranger, eyes dark with exhaustion, face pale from stress. But then she saw the small heart-shaped pin on her scrubs, the one Keanu had secretly pinned there before. She left that morning. A smile touched her lips. Keep going, she whispered to herself. Meanwhile, Keanu stayed with Jamie's mother. Anna. He helped her prepare soup, adjusted her medication, and kept her company as the hours passed. They watched old movies, and for the first time, Anna told him stories from her youth about the village she came from in Mexico, about raising Jamie alone, and about the night Jamie almost didn't make it as a baby. You were our miracle, she said to Keanu. You didn't know us, but you saved her anyway. Keanu looked at her and said, she saved me too. Then he paused. I want to ask your blessing, he said softly. Anna looked at him. I love her. Keanu said, I don't want to rush anything, But when the time is right, I want to build a life with her." Anna's eyes shimmered with emotion. "You already are." They hugged, quietly, like two people who had both walked through storms and still found their way home. That night, Keanu couldn't sleep. Jamie hadn't replied to any of his messages, and while he understood the situation, he felt restless. At around 3 a.m., his phone finally buzzed. It was a simple message. "Still at the hospital. Don't wait up. But I miss you." He smiled. But moments later, another message arrived from a different number. "Mr. Reeves, this is Nurse Erica from St. Catherine's. Jamie collapsed during her shift. She's stable, but we've moved her to observation. Please come when you can." Keanu's heart dropped. He grabbed his coat and drove faster than he had in years. When he reached the hospital, a nurse led him to a small room. Jamie lay on a bed, her eyes closed, a monitor beeping steadily by her side. Keanu stepped in, sat beside her, and gently held her hand. "Hey," he whispered, "you don't have to carry the whole world. You're allowed to rest." A nurse entered quietly. She pushed herself to hard dehydration, exhaustion, "But she'll be okay." Keanu nodded. "Thank you." He stayed with her all night, never letting go of her hand. When she finally opened her eyes the next morning, he smiled. "You scared me," he said softly. Jamie tried to sit up, but he gently stopped her. "Not yet. Just rest." "How's everyone?" she asked, her voice raspy. "You're not allowed to ask about other people until you're okay," he teased, trying to hide the worry in his voice. She smiled faintly. "You stayed, always," he said. She looked at him for a long moment. "I had a dream," she whispered. "You were there, and you were holding a ring." He smiled slowly. "Funny, because I've been carrying one." Her breath caught. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small box. Inside was a simple, elegant ring. No diamonds, just a smooth band with a tiny engraving inside that said, "Found each other twice." "I don't want a perfect life," Keanu said. "I want a real one, with you." Jamie's eyes filled with tears. "Yes," she whispered. "I didn't ask yet." He smiled. "Doesn't matter." She laughed. "Yes." Weeks later, they stood in front of a quiet courthouse, hand in hand. There was no press, no crowd, just Anna, a few nurses, and the sound of birds in the trees nearby. Jamie wore a simple white dress. Keanu wore a navy blue suit. When they exchanged vows, Jamie said, "You gave me more than love. You gave me safety." And Keanu said, "You gave me a reason to start again." They kissed, and everyone clapped. But just as they were leaving, a young girl ran up holding a phone. "Mr. Reeves, someone's trying to reach you. They say it's urgent." Keanu took the phone. The voice on the other end was shaky. "This is about your past." The caller said, "Something you need to see. It's about the donation you made all those years ago. It wasn't just for Jamie. There's more, and it's important." Keanu froze. Jamie touched his arm. "What is it?" He looked at her, unsure how to answer. "I don't know," he said, "but I think our story just got bigger." The name he never knew. The call haunted Keanu all night. Jamie, sensing the tension in his eyes, tried not to ask too many questions. They were newly married, still surrounded by the joy of quiet congratulations and warm smiles. But beneath the surface, something had stirred, something from the past that refused to stay buried. The next morning, Keanu drove alone to a quiet cafe where he agreed to meet the mysterious caller. A man was already waiting at a corner table, mid-40s, wearing glasses, nervous hands tapping against a coffee cup. When Keanu walked in, the man stood. "Thank you for coming," he said. "You said it was about the donation," Keanu replied, calm but cautious. The man nodded. "I work in the records department at St. Catherine's. I wasn't supposed to reach out, but when I saw your name connected to both patients, I couldn't stay silent." Keanu sat down slowly. "Both patients." The man slid an envelope across the table. "You didn't just save Jamie." Keanu opened the envelope. Inside were copies of 2 hospital records dated the same year. Both infants, both in critical condition. "This boy," the man explained, pointing to the second file, "was brought in the same night Jamie was admitted. His mother had passed away during labor. No family. He was going to be placed in foster care, but the donation you made covered his surgery too. Saved him. Keanu stared at the paper. What happened to him? He asked. The man hesitated. He was adopted, good family, but he recently came looking for his roots. When he found the hospital record and saw the anonymous donor, he insisted on finding you. Keanu looked up. Does he know about Jamie? Not yet. He only knows that someone saved his life and that his story is connected to yours. The man then handed Keanu a small photograph. A young man in his 20s, dark hair, kind eyes, holding a guitar. His name is Ethan, the man said. He's been trying to find you for months. Keanu sat back, speechless. Where is he now? He asked. Later that day, Keanu stood outside a community center near the edge of the city. He held the photo tightly in one hand, trying to steady his breath. A volunteer showed him to a small room where music classes were being held. Inside, a group of kids sat cross-legged on the floor while a young man played guitar and smiled softly between chords. When he looked up and saw Keanu, he froze. The kids turned to see what was happening. The room fell silent. Keanu took a slow step forward. Ethan, the young man stood. You're really here? They stared at each other for a long moment. Keanu spoke first. I think I helped you once. A long time ago. Ethan smiled. You did. And now, here you are again. They talked for hours. Ethan told him how he had always wondered where he came from, how his adoptive parents were loving, but something always felt unfinished. He described the moment he found the hospital records, saw the note about the anonymous donor, and felt something shift inside. I don't know what made you donate that day, Ethan said, but it gave me a life, and I've spent that life helping others through music. Keanu nodded, eyes filled with emotion. I didn't know until recently about Jamie, about you. I just wanted to help. Ethan reached into his bag and handed Keanu a notebook. I wrote a song for the person who saved me, before I even knew it was you. Keanu opened the notebook and read the first line. He saved my heart before it had a name. That evening, Keanu returned home. Jamie was waiting at the door. You were gone all day, she said with a soft smile. Everything okay? Keanu nodded slowly. There's something you need to hear. They sat down, and he told her everything about Ethan, about the hospital records, about the second life that was saved the same night she was. Jamie's eyes filled with tears. So he's like a brother. Keanu nodded. In a way, yes. Jamie stood up and said, then we need to meet him. A week later, in a quiet backyard lit with string lights, Jamie, Keanu, Anna, and Ethan shared a meal together for the first time. They laughed. They told stories. They discovered how similar they were, how both Jamie and Ethan had a love for helping others, how they both had scars that no one else could see, and how their lives had started in pain, but were now full of meaning. At one point, Anna took Ethan's hand and whispered, I prayed for the children in that hospital that night. I didn't know you were one of them. Now you're part of our family too. And as the stars filled the sky, Keanu stood up to make a quiet toast. We all carry pieces of the past with us, he said. Sometimes we don't know how those pieces fit. But tonight, I see the picture more clearly than ever. He looked at Jamie, then at Ethan. What started as a single act of kindness became something bigger, a family, a second chance, and proof that the smallest choices can echo. For decades, they all raised their glasses. Jamie leaned in and whispered, you gave us a ride that night, but really, you gave us a new direction. As the night grew quiet, Keanu stood alone for a moment. Looking at the sky, he thought of the past. He thought of lost. But mostly, he thought of love. Love that survives. Love that circles back. Love that finds you, even after you stop looking. He placed his hand in his pocket and felt the heart-shaped pin still there. Then he smiled and whispered to himself, this time, I think the ride led me home.